My name is Leah Dietzen, and I live here in the Sacred Valley of Peru. And I offer integration horse therapy, animal communication healing and training, and pranic energy healing. Honestly, so there were just these memories of me being a child. We lived in wide open spaces, 60 acres in Washington, and we never had a lot of money, but we always were able to have horses. And we had dogs and chickens and cats. And even from a young age, I was the one who was training the dogs. I would go and jump on the horses, no bridle and saddle, and like go wandering through the woods. And I was always watching the animals. I watched how they would engage with each other, the cats, the dogs, the chickens, the horses. I would go out in the mornings and watch the packs of coyotes and how they communicated with each other, how they were able to be right next to the horses. Without knowing it, I think at a young age, I was aware of how they moved energy and really held their own energy, and that was their way of communicating. That was like my safety bubble. That was my like magic time, and all the drama that I can look back on now, I was protected from it for a long time. And, life happens and things happen and things fractured in the family, and we moved a little bit more into the city, and I really lost that connection. We didn't have our horses. We had to get rid of my dog, and I kind of went on that, dark night of the soul journey. Those awesome self-destructive tendencies came up really strong, and I got in a really abusive marriage and had a really bad car accident and turned to, at first, pharmaceutical drugs and then into harder drugs. Really, at one point in my journey, made a conscious choice to choose harder drugs because I didn't know how else to get out. And I remember, literally, it was like my soul split out, and I was having this conversation with myself, do you know what you're doing? Are you sure you want to do this? And I just saw this tunnel of darkness, and then it flashed into light. And it was just yeah, I don't know what that is, but there's freedom there. And in all honesty, I was angry. Originally the plan was I was at University of Washington, and I was studying neuropsychology and animal behavior, and I got a vet tech degree, and then the car accident happened, and all that was stripped away. I started having massive panic attacks and social anxiety, and at the same time, there was just this fear of these innate gifts that I had. People would comment on it, and it would terrify me. With awareness, I think I can say that I was afraid of being different, and I was afraid of my own power. Little things there's something different about you. There's something special about you. You have something. You're different, you're special. And that would actually, it would make me angry. It would make me really angry. And I really fought to try and appear normal. Even in the days of drug addiction, I was a project manager at an energy efficiency company. I had the husband, honestly, I stayed home and read all the best literature with my pack of animals, I fought so hard to be normal. And also I would have these prophetic dreams where I would just be able to talk to people and see things and know things. And I saw, the positive, there's something special, but also that it scared people. And I had no background for it, so it was scary for me. With all due love and respect to my family, we were a little rednecky, And so there wasn't a deeper awareness or words around what I may have had or not had. There was just a unknown. On the very practical level, got into the hard drugs to the point where I ended up getting MRSA in my heart. For those that don't know, it's a antibiotic resistant strain of staph, and this one in particular had lodged in my heart. I didn't know it at the time. I just knew Like I could tell that I was dying, and I was honestly happy about it. Like I was just so miserable, and didn't know how to escape. I didn't know how to get myself out. I ended up leaving the house when really that alone was a struggle. And my drug dealer at the time just so happened to run into me and literally kidnapped me and took me to the hospital. And they called my ex-husband, and I'd hid it from everybody. Like, I missed my boat as an actress. I was really good at like putting on the front and putting on the show. But yeah, so they told my ex-husband, you know, your wife's a drug addict. And in all honesty, I think that's part of the freedom that I was seeking. I tried to leave, and we had some sort of karmic path and connection that couldn't be broken until it was time. And when he heard that I was a drug addict, you know, he came in that first day into the hospital and he's like, well, I'm sorry, but we're done. And he walked out. I literally could feel like this hand just coming and like cutting this chain that had bound us. And just feeling this like, I don't know what happens from here on out, but I know I'm free from that. I just remember at one point leaving my body and connecting with, I call it God, but really it's nameless. I'm just lazy and it's the shortest version, creator, universe, whatever. It was just love. It was just love and this like council of love. And they were like, yeah, you can check out. Like, you've had a hard one. There's no shame if you choose to leave the physical form. But if you come back, you'll know your purpose and you'll be able to help others. So I was a college athlete, soccer. I actually coached college soccer as well. But like, so the words, it's so funny. The words when I heard that was like, put me back in, coach. I'm ready to play. You know, like, and you know, I think if I'd known everything that this path entails, I would have had, you know, maybe more pause. But I was just so excited and like, yeah, put me back in the game. I know something now. I mean, that has been about 11 years now. And the journey has just been this like, okay, so how do I discover what this root purpose is? And in the beginning, it was very strongly informed by, I came back in the body and all of a sudden I'm talking to angels. I'm directly talking to animals, to trees. I'm walking down the street and I can tell that this person's been abused at 4 years old or their partner's cheating on him. And that was actually like a form of trauma in a way because I didn't understand. I didn't have that language. And I knew I had the awareness enough to know that I wasn't going crazy, but it kind of felt like it. And so I was in Southern California at the time, and I was just suddenly drawn to going to these Buddhist monasteries, sitting in sweat lodges, just finding any and every avenue and outlet I could to put some context around it. And I ended up working at a metaphysical store in Southern California, and Pranic Healing was being offered the night that I worked. Even then, I was still such a skeptic, like just stubborn and like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if this is real. Like, am I just making this up? I just had this, like, I don't know. I want to say it's a healthy dose of like, I'm just going to like observe and watch and we'll see. The pranic healers, they would pull me in every night after I was done working and they would work on me. And I would just feel these like layers of like the stuff from addiction, from the trauma, like even the skeptical mind, like I still have it very strongly, but like just like that complete shutting off and being closed was just softened. And they paid for my first class and then they paid for my second class. And I'm still just like, I don't know. So then they paid for my third class and my fourth class, which is like, it was a lot of money, you know? And I see now that there were these like hands outside of me that were supporting me but supporting me through actual humans. Once the fourth class, I was like, oh, okay, this is a good thing. I should pay attention to this, you know. And that's how I got really started in the pranic healing, mostly because at first, like it healed me. Through that, like my connection with animals has always been my saving grace. Um, I I am a fan of like being fully present in the shadow aspects of life. And so for me, suicidal ideations, like they come up a lot. I've had massive depression, anxiety. And so for me, I would just like really bring awareness into it and talk about it with my family. Hey, this is coming up for me right now. I'm feeling just really heavy, a lot of darkness. But it was always animals that were my anchor point into this is why you stay. I had my border collie Evie and Ivan, and they were the ones that just, they kept me alive. Like, bottom line, they kept me alive when I was just like, and especially after having a near death and like not being afraid of death. Like when life got so intense, I was like, I'll just leave, you know, and like then I would just see them and they were such guides. Like they were speaking to me. And it was just like, okay, I can weather this storm. I can do this one. I think before I didn't know the bigger picture. Everything in my life felt small and I just saw what was right in front of me. And there was no purpose beyond, well, this is shit, you know, or this is great, but it's going to be shit again and then it's going to be great again. Like it was just right there and I didn't understand a bigger picture of why. And there was like a innate sense, I think, of guilt or shame. I'm not doing enough. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, so there was like an element of confusion in it too. And something about just that awareness that there is a loving, benevolent, whatever it is out there. And the fact that they said, you can leave the body and if you want, there's no shame. Like everything that you've done up to this point, everything that was done up to you to this point, it's okay. And that immediately erased guilt on my end, but it also made me feel held for what I had gone through. And I also was able to see really clearly, like in that moment, that it was like, I don't know, maybe this is my like logical brain, but it was like a tax system. You know, there's no judgment. It's like some things you got plus points for, some things you got minus points for, but it's all just learning and experience. There's no right or wrong, good or bad. It's just gaining experience. Oh, that didn't work. Let's recalibrate. This did work. Let's expand on that. And that took away so much pressure of like, I'm doing it wrong. And that I wasn't alone. I wasn't alone. If I'm being honest, I think at that point when they're like, you're going to know your purpose and you're going to help a lot of people, like that really fed me for a long time. But I think at some point on my journey that became a weight and a pressure. And so I had to just throw it out the window, you know, like, no, actually, like it is fully enough for me to just be living my life and loving my life. And that alone helps and changes people. Like you don't have to save anyone and I think that was for the first couple of years. That was like something that I held and carried. And I think that was also guilt and shame from addiction. But now it's just like, do what feeds your soul and that will be a change agent without you even needing it to be. And so that's why I do the work that I do, because I freaking love it. I love it. And even then, like I was like a really big loner, if I'm in all honesty. I would just disappear into the woods. I would go backpacking into the woods by myself and really get my information directly from nature and from animals in a lot of ways. Like I was learning these teachings from Pranic Healing, but you know, I would go and be like, all right, I need some help. What you got for me? You know, and there was this one instance where an owl came, flew around the tree, landed above it. And probably because I'm skeptical, then a hawk came, flew, landed right above the owl, and then a crow right above. It was like, okay, all right, So animals really were these like guideposts, and nature was this guidepost throughout this time, and learning that I could have this connection. I could go and have this direct line of communication. And also when I was struggling or hurting, I can't tell you how many times I would find, a field of horses, and I would just go and sit with them, and they would just circle around me. Or if I had a pain in my body, they would like go and work directly on that pain. And so like they were always kind of these anchor points along my path. And so it actually took a while like of working and offering the pranic healing before I was like, wait, I've like always loved animals. Why am I not doing that? And it was interesting because it was like, well, I just love it and it's just easy. So why would I make that my work? And then I was like, well, why wouldn't I make that my work? And so, yeah, at that point, I started adding in the training and behavior, pranic healing for animals, and animal communication. I'm just tuning in and listening to what's true in the moment. And in the beginning, that really scared me. I didn't have a teacher, like I had teachers, but there wasn't someone telling me directly, this is what you need to do, which really forced me to rely on my own connection to myself and my connection to a higher source. And also just being in deep presence with what I was feeling from the animals, what I was feeling from the owners. And at the time I hated it, but now I'm so grateful. It was a beautiful link, right, to trusting myself and my connections. There were many moments where I would pray for a teacher. Give me a teacher, give me a teacher. Help me find this, help me find this. And aside from pranic healing, that and even them, they're like, go and test it for yourself. Don't take everything we say as of truth. Go and test it, And so I would just be praying over and over again, and I might have someone pop in for a second, and I'm like, oh! And then I think as soon as I had that attachment, life was just like, no. And so over and over and over again, I had to trust myself as my own teacher, trust life as my teacher, trust the animals as my teachers, trust my guides as my teachers. And yeah, I mean, at the time I was like, I would see all these people with like, my guru, my this, my that. And I'm like, I want one. And I really appreciate that I appreciate that I do have teachers, but there was never one that I gave all my power to. Especially for myself, I think that is something that I deeply needed to learn. I'm not saying some people might need that. But for me, I think I was too apt to give all my power and authority and discernment over to someone else because I didn't trust myself enough yet. My path and journey was learning how to trust myself. There was a very vivid moment. I was driving through Eastern Oregon and I saw this wild herd of horses. And I'm like, yeah, let's go play, And so I take my time, getting them to trust me, using body language, using energy, simple telepathy, although honestly, no mind is a really powerful thing. And they let me into the herd, and there was this one black horse in particular that it was the feeling of safety. I was picking up on the energy of some of the other horses, and I'm like, but this one, it was almost like this like grandmother or grandfather energy. And so, I am an adventurer, I'm a little cheeky, so I'm like, can I get on your back? And he was like, yep, go ahead. And so I jumped on his back, and he takes off, just walking, but like he takes off, and the entire herd of horses takes off after us, and we're like all just walking through this field. And it was just like this remembrance of what I loved as a child. I loved horses. I loved psychology, I loved being outside. And it was like, in that moment, it was like, I need this. I don't know what this is, but I need this in my life. And, like the romantic in me is like, I'm going to go find a farm and I'm going to disappear. And the journey since then has been a series of somewhat confusing in the moment steps, but now with perspective, I can see how it all circled to get me where I am. I was guided to go and live back in Southern California, which is not the vision of the farm that I had, but I started working with kids with autism and physical disabilities and horses, and got to really learn from that. And then moved back to Eastern Washington and helped my parents because they were sick, but got to help my sister start her farm and learn how to heal my own family dynamics, which I think honestly is an important aspect of it. Get to the roots of things if you want to get to the flower of things. And so, I had a really hard year of being really tightly close with my family. And my saving grace was helping my sister start her farm and raising sheep and just being more in tune with the land. But just all these different steps along the way that really informed and guided me in working with people that did horse therapy, but never any one teacher. It was just bits and pieces along the way, little breadcrumbs that were just guiding me and informing me. And if I'm being really honest, there was like this insecurity that came around that because I didn't have a master's degree. I didn't have 7 years with one teacher in one place. I didn't have certificates. But I really slowly began to build this confidence from what was being taught, from the animals, from the energy, from my own intuition of what I was receiving and hearing. I came here to Peru and started working in particular with this herd of horses. And the first thing that they told me was throw everything that you've learned out the window. And they have taught me a completely different way to engage and interact in offering the horse therapy in particular. It's something that just I love and it deeply feeds me, but it's also it's the package of all the different things that are an expression of me. Like there's no one thing that is Leah, and I love that my work reflects that. I also make chocolate, I do cacao ceremonies, I do the horses, and I don't know, it feels like permaculture for work, like diversify, don't have a monocrop. And that's very true for me because I have different loves in every moment and I love all of them equally and differently. But the horses are the thing that really feels like a birthing that just wants to be shared. And I think more so than anything, that's my goal. None of these things are me. They're gifts that want to move through me, that I want to share with others. Horses have brought me so much healing. They've taught me about boundaries. They've taught me about grace and forgiveness. They've taught me about telepathy. So the animal communication work in particular, I've noticed this really fascinating shift that's happening, whether it's training, healing, or communication. Animals always are showing me a reflection of what wants to be integrated and addressed in the human. And my philosophy is that there's not necessarily healing, simply just integration of different aspects and parts of ourselves. And so like as an example, I was doing a dog training with someone the other day, and this dog in particular needed boundaries to feel safe. And it triggered for her memories of a very authoritative father. And she just had to take a moment and just feel it, and have grief around it, so that she could then bring that aspect of a strong masculine who has boundaries, limitations, guidelines, in balance with the feminine that is also soft, nurturing, and loving. And so I always find it just really, I don't know, magical how animals come into our lives to help us bring awareness into these parts of ourselves that maybe we weren't ready yet or able to yet. And when it is in a cute, fluffy box, it's a lot easier to see it and not feel scared of it. And the same thing with animal communication. They might inform me of stuff they're going through. And they all have their own healing journey. They all have a personal path. But for whatever reason, they've decided to join up with us to help us also learn and integrate our own personal experiences. And sometimes they'll mirror it directly, and other times they will, it's funny, they'll, the human calls me for animal communication, the animal's like, I'm glad you're here. Like, can you help her, with this? And it's bloody brilliant. Like, these animals have such a depth that isn't always fully tapped into. And I feel really honored that they share with me and communicate with me in these ways. And always a lot of humor. In horse therapy and with animals, there is an idea that there's always a mirror or reflection of what's going on. And that, to me, it's true. And also, animals are sovereign beings with their own personal path and purpose. And it's not always something that has to do with us. And it's a beautiful distinction to make. Yes, have awareness, and also this animal might be choosing a specific path because that is what their soul needs to do to learn, develop, and grow. And so to have that awareness enables us as humans to just be present for their own journey, not take it personal, not make it all about us. Because, with all love and respect, the mirror thing can become a little bit narcissistic. It's all about me. It's all about me. Not always. Not always. Have reflection, and sometimes it's a personal journey. So yeah, that's also one that I really have found fascinating. That's really taught me as I've done this work more and more. Like, oh, you are a sovereign being. Okay, carry on. And sometimes they make choices because they might want to consciously leave the body. And us as humans, we don't understand that. But animals are just, they don't have the same attachments that we do as humans. And so sometimes they literally might make choices to be like, I'm done with this life. Can we facilitate this a little faster? And so, yeah, knowing that again, that sovereignty is so powerful in any context. So integration horse therapy, like I said, it was really born forth out of a co-creation with the horses that I work with now. It was informed by different teachings that I've done, but it really was created out of what they want to share with us. And I would say the biggest thing for me that I see is horses want us to remember that we're animals. We get into this story of love and light, and it's all beautiful, and if I just share love, and horses are just animals. They will kick you because they're in an ornery mood, or they'll push another horse out of the space because that's their hay. And it's just, there's this honesty. They don't feel guilty about it. They just, this is what my need is, and I'm going to be true to that need. And they've really learned how to just be in that deep, authentic awareness of their bodies as well. There's no mind chatter of, is this the right thing to do? Am I being rude? It's just, nope, this is what feels true for my body. I'm going to react to create the situation that I need. And that is actually what enables them to be in a herd dynamic that's actually safe and secure, because they are clearly communicating their own personal wants and needs. And they don't take it personal if the wants and needs differ. They might have a little tussle, and then they're like, they figure it out, and then they move on. And that's something that's really informed me in my relationships with humans. Everyone gets around at the table. Where do we want to go for dinner? Here's where I'd like to go to dinner. If we need to be flexible as each person puts their wants and needs out, but at least we all know what the cards are on the table. And so this deep, authentic honesty. And horses also, they have this magic. So they are reflections of our energy, and they will show us where we're maybe trying to push through, even though our body is tense, or we're not actually connected to our bodies, which creates a feeling of unsafety for a horse. And so they might react to that. And also, they have, is the only way I can explain it is magic, where a person will come in and we're doing therapy. Like I love it. People tell me deep personal things that are going on in their lives, and share about dynamics that are challenging, or old traumas that they've gone through that they're trying to heal. And so we'll have those conversations. Usually we're sitting with cacao before we sit with the horses. And then you can just tell, like a horse might come to me and be like, I need to work with her, or work with him. Or the person will directly go to this horse, and that horse, whether it's their core personality or not, that horse will enact the same engagement that person was just talking about. And like, even me, like even to this day, I'm just like, oh, like it's just crazy. But there's something about being able to intellectualize it, talk about it, and to see it so clearly reflected to you by this big being, to be like, wow, this is something that is continuously reflecting what is happening in my life. Why I always go for the man that is going to appear that he wants me and then turn away. When right over here is the horse or the man who appears boring, but once I go in the stall with him, he's right there. Or same thing flipped, male and female, like the horses reflect those dynamics so clearly. Or, I've got a brother who's always pushing me around, and they choose a horse that's going to push into their space. And the work that I do with energy boundaries is to show them how to tell a horse no. And what comes up when you tell a horse no? Even though that horse is making you feel uncomfortable, how can you learn how to be in your body and say, no, this is my space. You do not have permission to make me feel small. And to have people who can, again, intellectualize it, oh, I know I need better boundaries, to actually be standing in their body and say no and have a horse respond to that. Because that right there is learning embodiment of energy. We can use the words, but if our energy is in alignment, it's lying. We're all energy beings. And horses are brilliant at just like, you can say no, but if your energy isn't a no, they're just going to keep pushing you around. And so it really is a practice of deep embodiment of what we're really trying to learn, because again, it goes back to when I was a little girl watching coyotes engaging with the horses. Like that was all energy. That was all deep embodiment, and then being able to navigate together in that space and in peacefully, like they had no problems. And I think as humans we've kind of forgotten that aspect, and we keep trying to learn, and we keep trying to get a download or a meditation, and we've forgotten like it's got to be in the body for it to really be applied. Some of the themes that I see throughout all my work, whether it's the energy healing, the reflection through working directly with the animals or in horse therapy, is it's almost like a fear of breaking out of the pattern of what's known. And so I'll see it. So like I might be doing energy work and feel that there is some sort of block or congestion and start to move it, and that person, like they'll like energetically hold on to it. Or same thing like with horses, like, hey, tell them no. And I think that alone is a trauma response. We are familiar with something, and so we want to keep it. And so learning how to, if we really want to evolve and change, we have to let go of what's known and trust that connection isn't necessarily lost by trying something different. It's just allowing it to evolve in a healthier way. And so even if it's just an energetic cord that needs to be cleared, you're not cutting the person out. You're cutting out the dynamic of passive aggressive or manipulative or codependent. You can't get rid of love. Love is always there. You're just letting go of old dynamics and patterns that were keeping all parties small and in a place where you're kind of boxed in from really growing. And so even with the horses, when I invite people to say no, and I see that like, but I don't want this horse to be mad at me. I want to connect with this horse. But really what you're doing when you set a boundary, when you communicate clearly, you're actually making it safer to engage because you are letting others clearly know what your needs are, what your limitations are, and they don't have to fumble around and potentially hurt you, hurt themselves before they figure it out. You know, you are letting it known, like, here's what I'm okay with, here's what I'm not okay with. That creates safety that then allows you to drop into deeper intimacy. And all of the work for me is about consent, trust, intimacy. And we all desire deeper connection. We all desire deeper intimacy. And I think so many of us are trying to do it in a way that's actually avoiding what's going to get us there. And that is being clear and speaking up and communicating. That is saying no instead of just collapsing and saying yes until we get resentful and then being angry. And so it really is this process, whether it's the energy, the animals, or the horses, of leaning into where the discomfort is, knowing that that is where growth is, and that is where intimacy and deep connection comes from. I do a lot of work with communicating. I've done a lot of personal work for myself in learning how to communicate and be really clear. And after you learn on the energetic, on the physical, because I can do energy work, but then if you don't know how to apply it in the physical world with horses, like everything builds on it. So energetics, physical, and then actually being able to speak it from a place of love. And really just stand in that power and truth that if something goes away because of that, it's because it wasn't in alignment in the first place. There was trauma bonding, But yeah, I really love how all of the different work I do, it kind of fits in like perfect little puzzle pieces for me. It's actually really interesting, like the horses in particular, it's almost like they have a boundary, because I've had people come up to me and express that they want to work with me. And, it might be word of mouth where they initially heard about it or I'm talking about them. But what I've found is that if there's a part of their soul that's not actually ready to embody change, it won't work out. They might even set up a session and then life happens and it cancels or they cancel. And so for me, what I believe to be true is that their soul on a cellular level is ready to embody the change. Not just talk about it, not just get a healing, but actually embodied change. So I would say one of the things that working with horses in particular brings up for me is getting out of the box of the mind. Getting rid of this expectation of what therapy or therapy with horses looks like. And they really taught that to me in particular, to be completely open and alive to the present moment of what wants to happen. So I might have a client come in and say, I want to work on childhood issue ABC. And their body, the horses are speaking to me so strongly, they need to just go and sit in the stall and just be with their own heart, be with the energy of the horses, not having to work on anything, but just allowing deep rest. And I've seen that a lot. Other people that are like, okay, I just want to come in and sit around the energy of a horse. And a horse comes up with the lesson of like boundaries, or whatever it is. Or even like the other day, I had a client where it just came through so strongly. I wanted her to sit up on the horse. The horse wanted her, to sit up on it. And then moving her body in subtle ways to energetically find her power again after life had really knocked her sideways. It really is this practice, or even having one horse, and that horse you have to work so hard to build trust and connection, and then completely dropping it and being deeply present and aware when you go into the stall with this next horse, because they're a completely different being. It's a completely new moment. And so knowing how to allow that to go into your life. Yes, we have these stories and traumas and ideas, but even every person is new and alive in each moment. Can you meet them with curiosity, with openness, of actually feeling and reading into what's alive in the moment, instead of these projections that we put on everything? Horses have been such deep teachers for me in that, and back to point one, and back to point one, and back to point one. One of the biggest things in particular with the way that I work with the horses is the language around consent. And I think that in particular is highlighted because I think we forget to also ask for consent or give consent in our engagements with other humans. So if you think about it, most horses, you go in, you put a rope on them, you pull them out of the stall, and then you're going to ride them or you're going to work with them. There's no asking. And even in our like long-term relationships, we develop these patterns, and so we just have expectations. I'm going to come in, I'm going to ask you to do something, you're going to do it. There's no aliveness in every moment of, is this feeling good for you? Do you want to engage with me? And so one of the things with the horses is we go into the stall and we slowly get to know them by just being in their energy field. How do they react? Do they give us an ear, that says, pause? And then are we actually stopping? Are we paying attention enough to notice the subtle cues that they're giving us? Stopping, giving them space. Like, okay, I'm a new being that's just come into your space. Is this something that we want to do? Not just the horse, we. Is this something we want to do? And then you might come in a little bit closer, and then the horse might give you a tail flick. And that's another, okay, pause. And so moving slowly, because it's a dance. Even the coyotes and horses as a little girl, it was a dance. And then learning how to recognize every human engagement is a dance. Are we actually paying attention to the song? Are we paying attention to their body language? They may not yet have the vocabulary yet to recognize they need to speak a need, And so they might say, yes, I'm okay with that, but their body is contracting. Can we learn to recognize the universal language that we all speak that can create a container for safety for all of us? And that's consent. When we can build consent together, then we can have trust. And it's only with trust that we can have that deeper intimacy. If you don't have that base knowledge of, hey, they're paying attention to what I'm saying, even if I don't know how to say it, that builds the trust. And then with the trust, we soften. We become safe with one another. We can trust that our communication will be heard, whether it's a no, whether it's a yes, and that brings us to that place of intimacy that really we're all looking for. And with everything, it's practice. The dance. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And there's no rejection, there's no right or wrong. It's just information and curiosity and learning from one another, whether it's an animal or a human. honestly, what I feel like I've come to today is my purpose is to follow what makes me feel good. And that sounds so selfish, and it is actually the most selfless thing in the world, because following what makes me feel good in the moment means that I am honest. If I'm honest, then I'm trustworthy to other people. If I'm trustworthy to other people, we can have deep intimacy and connection. And that deep intimacy and connection is where we help each other to heal without even trying to. Just by being present in wherever I'm at, wherever they're at. That alone creates this weave and this thread that brings us all together in a space where we can flourish. We have space to be honest about what we need. And so I really do feel like tuning into the physical body in particular, because that really tells me if I'm leaning towards bliss and happiness for myself, or what my mind thinks is bliss and happiness. Is my body soft, relaxed? Is there subtle expansion, or is there contraction? And that to me is that guidepost of what I need to do in each moment. And from there, fascinatingly enough, all these little dreams are coming true. All these things that, yes, the mind created of this is what would make me feel happy, but at some point I had to put on the back burner to follow the breadcrumbs of what makes me feel good. Like, they've actually come together to fruition. But yeah, I honestly feel like that, and I should say purpose and what feels good in an awareness of making sure it's not hurting others, being mindful. And also, I think it's also true to say that sometimes our purpose and following our purpose might have collateral damage. I've had to leave relationships, I've had to move places. And it was hard. It was hard in those moments to follow my purpose. It was hard to hurt others and know that in the moment there was going to create hurt in myself. But there was just this intrinsic pulling of this is what's going to bring peace for you and for everyone else. And it has. It has. It kind of gave permission to other people to do the same, to follow their own truth and their own love. And yeah. So it's not succinct, but that would be, my explanation of my purpose. Knowing that, or discovering that my purpose is to find that which is going to bring me peace in each moment, has been deeply informed and taught by just seeing animals. Not always necessarily animals in confined spaces, because they get a little, but like animals in a more natural environment. If you notice, they have a peace, and they might have structure and hierarchy and rules, and also there's a lot of flow. All right, this coyote wants to go hunting right now. This one wants to go here. This one wants to go lay in the sun. Like, they're just honest in what they need. They're honest in what's going to feel good for them. Horses really do, like, their purpose is in each present moment of what's going to bring them something that makes them feel safe and peaceful and happy. And so that might be pushing another horse away from their food. It might be scratching another horse's back, but they're just honest. And I feel like us being able to learn to have that level of honesty and trust for ourselves, like, it ties us into the entire natural kingdom. If you watch a cat, its honesty in a moment might be to eat the hummingbird, but on some level that hummingbird might also be making a conscious choice, like, okay, that was a good run, like, there's so much going on. And I think it all weaves together beautifully if we sit and watch nature. It works. It's not picture perfect in the ways I think some of us want it to be, but like, it actually is, in messy and raw and also really beautiful ways. It's all perfect, and that's life. We're on Earth. It's earthy. I think we try to control our environment, our path, our purpose, our life. We try and control animals, our partners, our children, and And in truth, the beauty is in learning how to hold things with an open hand. And it's the most counterintuitive things for our human brain to grasp around. But to really trust that whatever is true in the present moment is what's supposed to be. And how can we step into that present moment in allowing? And knowing that allowing doesn't mean we're giving our power away. But in fact, with that deep embodiment, you are so in your power as you are present with what's true. You're not fighting, you're not controlling, you're not trying to force the hand one way or the other. And even in that, it's like, well, how do you sit in that yin yang if, say you have a dog or a horse coming at you, that wants to push into your space, that's something that doesn't come from an external rigid control. When you're in your center, it just, to me, it literally feels like it rises up from the earth to be like, it's not control, it's embodiment, it's presence. And in that way, you move through life without this rigidity, and you still hold your power. You still hold this ability to I don't know. I don't know what the right word is. I don't think I need to know. And that's kind of part of the beauty of it. Because it's just feeling.